Hi.
Oh, they think about you. Prepare to leave my body when the time it comes through. Loving on.
The topic of today's video is self-care, which I think is BS. So this past quarter, I took a class with Dr. Carol Dweck, who is a famous psychology professor and researcher. Then one of the most interesting things she showed us was the idea of limited willpower, aka ego-depletion. So this idea was made popular by a famous research paper back in the day and a book that followed it. And basically the idea of ego-depletion is that our willpower is physically limited. As in every time we make a decision, we cut back on the reservoir of willpower that we have available to us. And so basically you will physically run out of the ability to make willpower decisions. And so my professor, Carol Dweck, was a little skeptical of this. And so she did a counter-research study, and she found that it's not actual ego depletion that causes people to feel like they can't make decisions, it's the belief in ego depletion. It's only if you believe that you can only work for so long that you feel like you can only work for so long. So what my professor said is that if you believe your willpower is practically unlimited, then you will be much more productive, because it won't even cross your mind that you need to take breaks, because you really don't. So after hearing this from my professor, I thought about how it could apply to students and me in college. And then I remembered something I heard really often while at Stanford, and that was the idea of self-care. And so I thought about what self-care really means. And well, it basically encourages us to take care of ourselves to prevent burnout and overstressing ourselves. But then I thought, isn't self-care practically synonymous with ego depletion or limited willpower? Because basically self-care is saying that you can only work for so long without being unhealthy. So for a long time, I believed in self-care. Actually, I loved self-care because basically it told me that I could take breaks and slack off, and it was actually making me healthier. So in high school, I would take a ton of naps, watch a ton of YouTube and Netflix, and play a ton of video games while avoiding my work. And I told myself it's because I was just way too stressed and I would need to take breaks so I didn't burn out, because after all, self-care is so important. But of course, I was lying to myself. So I basically took self-care as an excuse to indulge in bad habits. So while I was writing one of my final papers for class, I kept the idea of unlimited willpower in my head. And soon I was able to work for 12 hours straight without really noticing it. And afterwards, I wasn't really tired either. I felt fine. And I realized that I can work a lot longer than I think as long as I believe it. If I were to have practiced self-care while writing this paper, I would have taken a lot longer, because I would have been taking breaks, eating snacks, taking naps, doing yoga, or watching Netflix, all under the guise of taking care of myself. But because I didn't do that, I was able to get it done quickly while focused the entire time. So what I'm saying is the way that self-care is promoted in schools is a little misleading, because it leads to believing in limited willpower and ego depletion, which itself has negative effects on productivity. So I'm not saying self-care is complete BS, because it is very possible for you to overwork yourself. But I think that self-care is not as necessary as we think, as in we don't need it as much as we think. So that's my ramble on self-care, and of course I understand that I am not a psychology professor or researcher, and most of my opinions are based on a couple studies I've read and anecdotal evidence. But I think I'm onto something here. So as I continue on to winter break, with a ton of free time, I will tell myself that I have the ability and unlimited willpower to make more videos. And hopefully, if I believe in that, I will actually make more videos. So hopefully, see you soon, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow, maybe next week, depending on how much I feel like getting out of bed. But hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.
Oh, they think about you. Prepare to leave